We survived the Yuzong Vong, all right? Hey, listen, the Thrawn... Hang on. The Thrawn trilogy had freaking animals that sit around like dead foxes around Thrawn that just like cancel the Force. and we all accept that as like, oh yeah. You know, sometimes I find myself wishing for another time, a better time, before the dark times.
Before the dark times, before the Empire
of Star Wars fandom. Isn't that right, Steven? What's going on, man? Hi, welcome back to Geeky Stoics.
We're left with an aching feeling of something lost, even though we are in this period of time where there's so much Star Wars, a glut of Star Wars. You and I both went through the period known as 2005, where we thought it was over.
Cut. Beautiful. That's it. Last shot, Rick. It's all over now. 28 years.
Wow. We thought that was the end of being a Star Wars fan and seeing new movies with George Lucas's Skywalker story done. And then lo and behold, 10 years later, it comes back to life and we're not happy, Riley. It didn't fill the hole in our hearts.
You sent me this video. And so as we've done a few times on the channel, we've gotten together for these more like long form conversations, but this is just something that it's a bit of a first, but I just want to watch it because I watched this thing when you sent it to me and it blew my mind. So without further ado,
the Vespas.
Been there.
Okay, we'll stop it here. So this video from the channel Thomas R. Howell, a pretty new channel. It just got started. This is a love letter to Star Wars. This feels like it's like an indie movie. This feels like a student film project about nostalgia. And right out of the gate, this video has two different tones. In the beginning, it almost seems like it's supposed to be a parody because it's kind of funny, right? He picks up he puts a letter in the mail, he picks up the stormtrooper, and then you see Rey's face, and then
that's your first clue.
Yeah, the witch mother from the Acolyte, and it almost feels like the video is meant to be a comedy. And you'll see that the video takes a very, very dark and heartfelt turn here soon. But right now, this feels like it's sort of like a fanboy tears video. And like, oh gosh, new characters that I don't know or like. But it is expressing sort of like a complete alienation.
It is a artistic statement of where I would say certainly where the filmmaker is as a Star Wars fan, but I would also say something that I think he's capturing more artistically and representing a segment of how fandom has felt for a while. But you're right, that's kind of just stating where we are. Let's catch the second bit here. All right. I gotta pause it. This is the moment where this is where the turn really starts to show. And it's so, I think the thing that is so powerful about that shift here is that it's represented with exactly 0 words at all. It's just simply showing items that represent Star Wars fandom from a different time.
Yeah, and it's worth noting that we're looking at a prequel kid here. This is one of us.
Yes,
I had that DVD. I do have that DVD. It's upstairs in a drawer. My daughter's up there watching a show right now. That DVD is in that case. And every time I see it, I am in my best friend's bedroom, 15 years old. The year is 2006. Yep. And we are designing Jedi robes. We are choreographing fights from Revenge of the Sith, trying our best to recreate the Obi-Wan versus Darth Maul one-on-one from the Phantom Menace. There's so much emotion wrapped up just inside that DVD case. And I don't know about you, but in the Battlefront II video game case as well. Because when I see Battlefront II, I'm with my brother.
Yeah.
And my brother and I are adults now. We don't live in the same city. We're not as close as we used to be. But when that was in my life, everything was better. I mean, is that your experience? Because that's when I
kind
see
of the
when I
point
see
here.
these boxes, that's what I feel.
Yeah, it's kind of the point here. Like it's everything that's represented in this T-shirt, in the Revenge of the Sith DVD case. It's remembering a time that connects you, I think, to your experience of who you are as a person when you're a young Star Wars fan.
Oh gosh, that shot is beautiful. Wow. All right, you got to pause it there. This is really heavy. So first of all, this for Mad Men fans, this evokes a famous scene where Don Draper, played by John Hamm, is presenting
Yep.
a pitch for a photo reel, and he's basically pitching the idea of a photo projector, the carousel, and the carousel of images that he's showing to people in the 1960s. This is sort of new technology. He's describing to them how these photos take them on a journey back to a time where they felt safe, where they felt loved, a place that they want to go again. And he describes it as nostalgia.
Teddy told me that in Greek, nostalgia literally means the pain from an old wound. It's a twinge in your heart.
That has some truth to it. There's a lot of different working definitions for nostalgia and what it means, but it's a pain. And I feel that watching him sit there at the beginning of Revenge of the Sith, watching that Obi-Wan fight with Darth Maul.
Dude,
it's not just good feelings. It hurts.
It is, and it's the artistic expression of it. I mean, such a talented filmmaker. The way the lightsabers literally are reflecting off of his glasses. I mean, it just captures that feeling that I so painfully immediately had. And that's, you introduced me to that scene from Mad Men. I remember the idea of nostalgia being literally, I think it's like the Latin translation is like, it's the pain of something from the past.
Yeah, he says it's a Greek translation. And you know, I've got a book in front of me about nostalgia, and the truth is that there's a lot of colloquial definitions for what nostalgia is. But that's one of them, and it's definitely in the main vein, but it's the idea of a warmth that is painful. One of my favorite observations about nostalgia, which I guess this video really speaks to, is you're looking to the past for something that was good, and you are wondering where it is in your life now. The good thing about nostalgia, it's not just fanboy tears, right? It's this was good. This made me happy. I want this in my future. And so nostalgia is not just a thing that holds us down and makes us look in the rearview mirror. It's meant to be a thing that helps direct us ahead. The author named Clay Rutledge, he has a book called Past Forward. And I'll wrap up by saying, he says, the past isn't the true destination of nostalgia. It's just where we go to grab supplies for our trip. It's what we're taking with us. Well said.
I couldn't say it better myself. In fact, I was good. I was gonna have like stuff to say here. I just want to watch the end of this video because oof.
Ouch.
Steven, hang on. Let me adjust my microphone. I don't. Sorry, I'm actually. I was kind of briefly and very uncharacteristically having a hard time coming up with how to describe my feelings after watching this video. It was painful is the right word, because it reminds me of the piece I wrote now, more than 2 years ago, when I ended the Star Wars Report podcast. I did it. It was a written piece, but it's the final episode of the Star Wars Report podcast, which for you guys who don't know, if you know us from Geeky Stoics, that was like a Star Wars podcast that I did for I don't know, like 11 years of my life.
Mm-hmm.
Like a long time. And the reason after is because the short version is I was clinging to a thing that had died, basically, and that was the version of Star Wars fandom, like I wasn't sure whether Star Wars had changed or whether I had changed, but I knew one or both of those things had happened, and it was a very painful thing to let go, because that element of my Star Wars fandom was definitional. That's how I really got into Star Wars, was the online community through like the force.net way back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
And this video just reminded me of that time, and it makes me angry. I'm not gonna lie. It makes me, there's something in me that like sees that time and see what's become of this franchise and fandom. And
I think what you're saying is actually so important, because I'm gonna keep referencing this book because it's something I'm reading. It's called How Nostalgia Can Make You Live a More Meaningful Life, called Past Forward by Clay Rutledge.
Mm-hmm.
And the social science around nostalgia that this book brings up is that nostalgia and those feelings, that warm pain, it actually is what situates us in the context of our existence. We don't understand who we are in the present without knowing where we came from. And so for you, like, you're looking back and you're going, that is my roots. That's where I came from. I don't exist if I don't have that peace in my life. So it's our foundation on which we stand, and it alienates us from everything around us when we don't see that in our lives anymore. We're like, where did that person go? Who is that guy that I'm watching in those videos here, those childhood videos playing with lightsabers? I don't even know that person.
Yeah. I don't even have, like, I as a kid, as a tween was when I was getting into Star Wars. I was thinking about this because we were texting about this video earlier today. I don't even like have videos and pictures from that time. I have time like from high school, which is when I started the Star Wars Report. I have some of those early Star Wars Celebration, like Celebration 5 is in 2010. That was like the first convention that I went to. And that's like the first earliest even photographic memories I have. But like the earliest elements of my Star Wars fandom, those latter days of the prequels, when I was first getting into it, it almost makes me like bitter about it, because I don't even I have the memories. I don't even have like the camcorder footage of me and my friends playing with those freaking $6 lightsabers that would just bleed your knuckles. Like that's the elements of the early parts of my Star Wars fandom. And I think this is the piece I did want to ask you about, Stephen. I really actually did want to dig into briefly. Who knows if it makes it into the video, but I just have to ask you. Is it fair to look at the state of Star Wars as a franchise and as a fandom now in 2024 and be righteously angry at what has become of it? Because there is the element of nostalgia where every generation experiences it. And some could say that like original trilogy kids would feel the same way when Jar Jar Binks was walking around. But I don't think it's the same. I really do think that there is I have a significant sense of loss when it comes to how the franchise has fallen. And it's not because of any of the specific particular stories. It's really, I think, the fandom and the storytellers surrounding the franchise itself.
Yeah, I definitely don't want to diminish anybody's feelings on that. I think it's clear that is something that a majority of people feel. I think it is a result of technological and social change that is layered on top of Star Wars's changes in the era of Disney. I think you have to look at the way that we're stratified across social media, packed into shared spaces with people who don't share our values and don't share our true interests. And we call ourselves a fandom. Um, it used to be that you had your friend circle for your fan groups, and then you had people that you met at the comic book store and conventions. And that was the fandom experience. Now, fandom is a lived every single day experience online in spaces with people who, you know, often are contemptible and want to do battle and want to fight and name call and
certainly their behavior is
suck up to Disney's PR people and like all that kind of stuff. There's so much clout chasing that goes on around it. It's obviously different because the fandom is closer together than we ever have been. And it turns out we actually don't like it very much.
And maybe why it hits home so much for me is that I literally had a front row seat to everything you just talked about, like over a 10-year period. It'll be in the book I write someday. I'm like, because Star Wars in this weird way is sort of a amalgamation, a representation of. I know it's like a kitschy phrase, but like when you're talking about the culture war or the deterioration of politics and how. And social conflict that we've experienced over the last, I would say pre-pandemic to pandemic and beyond. Star Wars has in this weird way been at the center of it a lot. And so in that weird way, I had this front row seat to the diminishment of once great franchise.
Yeah. And I think let's go back to the video, A Love Letter to Star Wars, and kind of talk about some of its main themes a little bit, because one of the things that I think is worth pointing out about this video, and this is going to be packaged as a criticism, is based on research around nostalgia, which is very, very crystal clear that the lonelier people are, the stronger they feel nostalgia, and it often is more negatively tinged. It is nostalgia sort of wrapped in bitterness and resentfulness. And
you see that everywhere. I resemble that remark, Stephen.
And so go back to 45 seconds through the video. And so this isn't meant to be a criticism of Thomas Howell here. This video is a piece of art. It's an expression. He might have roommates. He might have best friends, brothers in his life, sisters. He might have a girlfriend, a wife. But what this video is capturing is a person in the dark in a lonely house, living alone. This man looks like he is in his late 20s, maybe early 30s. And this is not healthy. Like, this entire picture is not healthy. And so the fact that he is in this dark house all by himself, going through this box of memories and sitting on the couch to rewatch prequels all by himself, it is sad. Star Wars lives in our hearts only because it was shown to us, because somebody bought us a ticket at a time when we were too young to actually buy tickets for ourselves. And the power of Star Wars is generational and passing the torch and passing the lightsaber. This person in the video, again, I don't think Thomas Howell is like actually trying to represent his life. Maybe he is, but he is not going to feel an ounce of joy about Star Wars again until he is showing it to a toddler, until he is showing it to his child. He needs to have a family. He needs to extend the line of Star Wars fans. He needs to take under his wing a niece or a nephew. He needs to do something to actually share Star Wars with other people, because when it is only about the self and trying to time travel back to a person who you are not anymore, it really hurts. And so this video captures loneliness, and that is very true of what a lot of people are going through. So this is not meant to be like a harsh criticism. It is a reality that loneliness is an epidemic overtaking this country, particularly with men.
Yeah, no, that's
and
true.
it's
I mean, it's
devastating.
something I deeply experienced growing up. Like Star Wars for me represent the few friendships I had uh growing up, like middle school, high school time frame, were centered on a love of Star Wars, and that translated very quickly to, like, as a high schooler, some of the first community I ever found was through like the Force.net forums and the old
Mhm.
Forcecast podcast way back in the day, and that represents a special time. And I remember then meeting those people at Celebration for the first time. And that was in a lot of ways, strangely, my mom and I were having a conversation a couple years ago, just kind of reflecting on the crazy experience that I had as just a high school kid starting a Star Wars podcast, and just looking back on it, how strange that is as an experience in life. And she likened it to, I think, a lot of contemporaries or friends or people my age, they think of that experience as your time in a sorority or a fraternity in college. But I didn't have that experience. I worked through college, and that was just never my quote unquote scene. But at the same time frame, at the same age, that was where like Star Wars became my community and some of my best friendships. People that were like Aaron Goins, like one of my best friends who's in my wedding, I met because of Star Wars.
Yeah.
It is legit like a
And
real thing.
and I, again, because I want to be really clear, I'm not like throwing stones at lonely people kind of looking back on their childhood. Look, I'm 35 years old. I have a beautiful teenage daughter, a lovely wife. I have a great and happy life, and we love Star Wars together. I share Star Wars with her. We cosplay. We watch all the movies, all the shows, and it helps keep that spark alive. But also, guys, I mean, I am actually pretty lonely. This happens to be the case with a lot of young parents,
Yeah.
that it's hard to actually form connections with other parents because you're younger than most people who have teenagers. And I don't have many friends, Riley. I have you. You live down in Atlanta, like the Atlanta, Georgia area. My best friend from childhood lives in the Virgin Islands, and my brother lives a couple of hours away.
Yeah.
I'm pretty isolated, and that's a real thing. And when I watch this video and those childhood videos, I have those. You mentioned you didn't. I do. I have boundless amounts of camcorder footage of me, my best friend, my brother, and another one of our friends, Quinn, Will, Michael, who were my high school clique, and we only found each other through Star Wars. Do you know how we formed our friendship, Riley? I was in Boy Scouts, and I didn't have any friends in the troop. And then one night we were playing like a hide and go seek, sort of flashlight tag in the dark in the woods. And I started making the dun 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 dun. I started doing the Imperial March in the woods, and then another boy started singing it back to me. Dun 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 dun.
A call and response,
And
an Imperial call and response.
And his name is Will. And Will and I immediately found each other in that moment. And we've been best friends ever since. And I miss him so much because he's so far away. But we made fan films. We choreographed lightsaber battles. We cosplay together. And all of my warm Star Wars memories and painful Star Wars memories of waiting in line for the midnight showing of Episode 3 to playing Battlefront 2 to our beautiful days playing Star Wars Galaxies and traveling that expansive open world together. It hurts because I don't have that in my life today. And I'm grateful for your friendship because, it's like chapters in a book. And this has been a beautiful chapter where I feel like I have a friend to talk to you about this stuff.
It's been fun, and that's where like I can like now turn to camera and like for you guys who've jumped on this like Geeky Stoics thing, it's been a really fun project because you had Beltway Banthas before, I had Star Wars Report, and it's exciting to like close a chapter and open a new one because we don't just we talk a lot of Star Wars, but we talk about it in a very different context because we've had a lot of different life experience from the versions of us that were like starting our podcasts like 10 years ago. That's what it's like. And that's, think that's awesome. I that's what makes me so excited about this project. You know, you were talking about kind of your experience growing up. I would, if there's one like maybe parting shot that I would want from this conversation that I think is worth sharing is that as much as I had a few friends growing up that were into Star Wars, really it was a family affair. It was my older sister, Cindy. My dad was really into it. It's always my mom, but it was like this big family affair. And to the point where, because I'm the youngest of 6 kids, so like all of my older siblings got to see Star Wars and were like into Star Wars before I was. So I always knew it was cool. As the prequels were first coming out, I wanted to watch them, but it was an event to first sit down and watch Star Wars. And maybe it's like the kid memory, rose-tinted glasses, or distorting time. Like I feel like it was legitimately a year from when my parents were like, all right, we're going to finally sit down. You're going to get to watch Star Wars for like the family movie night. And I remember just waiting months and months for the time where it worked out with everyone's schedule to line up and finally sit down and watch the first Star Wars movie that I ever watched, which I'm wondering, I thought I might have it, which is the original like VHS edition of the Phantom Menace.
Okay. Yeah.
True story. Yep, the Phantom Menace.
Yeah, and, you know, that's why Star Wars is so special to people. And you know, I imagine that, you know, Andrew in this video is thinking back, or Thomas is thinking back to a time where he was with people, where he wasn't lonely and alone in this house. You know, all those memories that we have of Star Wars were shared with other people. And I really do feel strongly that a lot of the polarization that happens with Star Wars fans has to do with who is and isn't in their life anymore. Not just the content itself, not just the stories. They don't recognize who they are in the mirror. They don't see the people in their life who gave them context for their existence anymore. And they don't recognize the characters. There's new characters. So it's one thing layered on top of another. Who are these people I'm looking at on this screen? Where are my heroes? And where are my friends and family who I miss? And you know, that's real. It actually matters. And so what I wanted to do to kind of wrap this up was ask you, and then maybe I'll chime in on it, is the point of this book, Past Forward, is to think about how nostalgia doesn't hold us back, but directs us to the future. It gives us a sense of what we loved and what we want to recapture. And so this video, A Love Letter to Star Wars, what do you think it can tell Star Wars fans, people watching this video, about what needs to happen, either with Star Wars or with them and their lives?
I know exactly what it is. I know exactly what it is, Stephen. And I don't think it's going to be a surprise.
Let's hear yours.
Because listen, I see hang on. This is serious business. I see the analytics. Like I know that you watching this right now are probably Stephen and my age, AKA you are a kid of the prequel era, a kid of the 90s. A kid who, by the way, like this is what we make this serious. We survived the Yuzong Vaughn. All right. We survived some of the weirdest expanded universe, off the wall books and characters. I remember I saw just like in a Facebook group recently, like some excerpts from one of the Tales of the Bounty Hunters books. And it's like this really weird anecdote where Boba Fett goes off on a rant about sexual morality. And this isn't a Star Wars book. This is a real thing, Stephen. Star Wars as a franchise has survived plenty of weird off the wall or storytelling that has not connected with me. So the fact that there have been elements of Disney Star Wars and I remember plenty of them that haven't connected with me in the same way that the prequels did, that doesn't mean the death of Star Wars. To answer your question, Stephen, I think the thing that we have to think about ourselves is if we're thinking Star Wars, if Star Wars is that thing worth sharing, who is who for me are the ones that I will show the Phantom Menace VHS tape to. And for me, that answer is clear. And I think we should think about this and have a clear answer. For me, that's my nieces and nephews. Like I have, they're just coming up. There's in the family group chat. My niece just saw A New Hope for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
And that is so exciting. And it reminds me because they live overseas. Like I need to like schedule a FaceTime and ask her about what she thought of the Star Wars movie. Because it's important to have that connection because it's an important part of my life. So like I'm like literally challenging myself as we're recording this. It's so important. That was my takeaway. Sorry, that was a bit of a rant. I got a little carried away there.
We survived the Yuzhong Vong. I mean, absolutely.
Hey, listen, the Thrawn. Hang on. The Thrawn trilogy had freaking animals that sit around like dead foxes around Thrawn that just like cancel the Force. and we all accept that as like, oh yeah, no, the Thrawn trilogy, the greatest thing. Like there's been weird stuff, off the wall stuff that's not matched George Lucas's Star Wars for years. All right.
No, and it's so true. And I think it was different because we were different people.
Yes.
We had different concerns. We had different stresses or lack of stress in our life. And for me, I think when I look at this video, and I watch him viewing those old DVDs, going back through them, I know what I'm missing, and it's a physical community. It's a physical, real Star Wars community. Not that you're not real, Riley. I do see you periodically every couple of months, but
hey, Fairfax Comic-Con.
The midnight movie premiere was so special to me. I have such powerful and meaningful memories of going to see Revenge of the Sith midnight showing, to go seeing the X-Men 3 midnight showing with my friends Last Stand. These things don't happen quite like they used to. Movies premiere now sometimes for some reason like 2 days in advance in the middle of the afternoon. You don't wait till midnight to watch a movie anymore. That's not what happens. And a lot of times the content, the shows are going straight to Disney Plus or to streaming places. And we're all watching them in solitude and then yelling at each other about them on Twitter. And, look, that's not fulfilling.
No,
that's not fulfilling for my heart, but we just sort of accept it. And we go, thank you, sir. May I have another? And, I happen to believe that technology is going to advance in the direction of what people are yearning for. And we know that what is going on right now in our social media environment and our media climate and our technology, that people are not happy. Yeah. And so I want us to go back in the direction of something that we lost between now and I would say the turn of the century, the year 2000. We lost something along the way. Yeah. And this video made me think about how can we pick it back up?
Yeah, these stories have like principles, values, messages for us to learn from. We should start a YouTube channel about that, Stephen. I think that'd be a good idea.
We should. It'll be called Geeky Stoics.
It's a great idea. On that note, hey, geekystoics.com. That's where you want to go sign up for the newsletter. Stephen's writing one every week these days, and it's the same kind of content in newsletter form in your inbox. Stay in touch with us because we do have some cool plans because I think this has sort of been a clarion call, a reminder to me of the things that I want to do with Geeky Stoics as a platform. So I'm really excited. Stephen, I know we have plans to go to Fairfax Comic-Con. I know it's early, but like getting the show on the road in person. Hey, I want to do like a meetup at a future Star Wars celebration.
And we also have plans to get together Geeky Stoics subscribers for a summit, and a cabin in the woods in the year ahead. So, we're going to build that community.
That's the idea.
Yeah.
100%. Listen, and maybe we need like a speakeasy style, like Tolkien. What's the Tolkien Lewis and his compatriots, the Inklings. The Inklings. We need like the Inklings, but for Geeky Stoics type deal. But lots of plans, lots of cool ideas. But on that note, Stephen, I think that's a wrap on this edition of what was started as a reaction video, but quickly became a in-depth discussion where I began to question everything. Thanks, Thomas. A love letter to Star Wars.
Yeah, thank you, Thomas R. Howell. It was a beautiful video. And may the Force be with you all.
Always. Oh, look, we switched roles there. I see what you did. I see what you did there, man. All right, let me stop the